Nation of Fit in 10, welcome to day 25. And if you don't already know, the Calendly link has been put up for you to book your next scan. So please make sure you do. It's in Slack, www.calendly.com/fit10. Back to questions, so let's get into it. In our Renpho scale, this is a question, by the way. In our Renpho scale, we are given info about our subcutaneous and visceral fat. When we follow the macros and do the exercises for this challenge, where would you expect the fat loss to come from? Will some of us lose fat faster than others depending on our body shape and size? Our past challenges have seen certain body types, in past challenges, have you seen certain body types more successful than others in losing body fat? Example, pear shape versus apple shape versus rectangular. Okay, so first of all, I'm just going to, let's deal with the questions, I guess, in order. So, in terms of the Renpho, estimating things like visceral fat and subcutaneous fat, I'm not really sure how accurate that is, to be honest with you, because we don't have any imaging software here. So we don't have any imaging technology, I should say. This is not like a DEXA scan. Okay, DEXA uses X-ray technology. In this case, I don't know how it would do that. Now, how it can differentiate between lean body mass and fat is very easy, just simply because of how fat versus lean body mass, how it is able to carry a current. All right, so fat, which is very low water based, is not going to carry a current very well. Your lean body mass, on the other hand, is going to carry current very, very easily. So it's very, very easy to distinguish between the two. So I'm not really sure on that, to be honest with you. And in terms of where would I expect the fat loss to come from? Honestly, I have no idea. I don't have even the slightest opinion from this, to be honest with you. I will say this. One thing I do notice is typically people, for whatever reason, I can't say for sure why this is, but people that tend to drink a lot tend to have a very high amount of visceral fat. So yeah, that's about my extent of visceral fat knowledge, okay, aside from what visceral fat is, okay? For those of you who actually don't know, visceral fat is just the fat that basically sits around your organs, okay? You basically have three types of fat. You've got subcutaneous, which is beneath the skin, visceral, which is inside your abdominal cavity and around your organs, and then you've got ectopic fat, which is within the organs themselves. So I don't know. I don't have an answer. I don't even have an opinion on that, to be honest with you. In past challenges, have you seen certain body types more successful than others in losing body fat? All right, I don't subscribe at all to these so-called body types. All right, now you can categorize people however you want. There's something called somatotypes, and this is something we learned in kinesiology when I took my first kin course, actually, back in a long time ago, late 90s. We talked about somatotypes, okay, ectomorph, mesomorph, and endomorph. And, excuse me, I don't know if I said all of them. Ectomorph, endomorph, mesomorph. This is just something that somebody came up with, and this is just a way of putting people in certain boxes. Of course, nobody is 100% mesomorph, or very unlikely, or endomorph or ectomorph. Usually it's a combination of two of them. Okay, it's really not a combination of three, because one, you sort of got a spectrum of, an extreme and then somewhere in the middle, right? So endomorph would be, somebody who's supposedly more pear-shaped. Then you're going to have somebody who is mesomorphic, which is more athletic. Essentially, there's more traits in this, but just for the sake of time here, more athletic, and then you got ectomorph, which is more thin. Okay, so usually you're a combination of both those. But this is really just something that's made up. Ultimately, at the end of the day, what will dictate your fat loss is really your lean body mass. This is what will dictate your fat loss. So, you know what? That is actually not an accurate statement, what I just said. Let me rephrase that. What will predict your BMR is your lean body mass. Okay, now that's not to say there aren't anomalies out there, for sure, okay? And that's not to say that there aren't other factors that can affect your BMR, okay? But largely, as a whole, BMR, when you look at any of these calculators out there that estimate your BMR, they're looking largely at lean body mass. Now there are certain groups, for example, if you look at, and this is just an example, if you look at like Pima Indians or something like that, they have a very high propensity to carry fat in their torso. Why that is, in particular, Pima Indians in the United States, not so much or not as much in Mexico. Why this is, I'm not sure, but I think it's largely due. There's a genetic factor there for sure. But it's probably a combination of genetics and lifestyle. But at the end of the day, as a whole, when we're looking at people, we're really looking at lean body mass. So when we look at lean body mass, pound for pound, we are all in the same playing field, okay, in terms of our BMR. Where we have a lot of control is with the other aspects of where we can expend energy, right? So we've got our BMR, that's one portion of it. But we also have our non-exercise activity. We've got our exercise activity, right? Those are two other areas where we can expend energy. And finally, we have thermic effect of food, right? The amount of energy it takes to burn through food. And this is largely dependent on the types of foods we eat. What type of macronutrient are we eating, largely? Okay, so that's where you're gonna be able to play with that the most. You can influence your BMR by increasing your lean body mass. Okay, so, as I said, there are anomalies there. If you have a thyroid condition, this is really going to impact your BMR. Maybe if you have some sort of other hormonal issues, potentially sex hormones, that type of thing, this can affect your fat loss, or at least where fat is deposited. Okay, how am I doing here? 7:27. Okay, let me bring up one more thing here, because I want to talk about macros and why they're important. And I realize this might be perhaps a bit of a boring topic for people, but I think it's something that we should cover. So, dietary protein, here are, and again, not an exhaustive list by any means, but this is 7 reasons why dietary protein is very, very important, okay? So obviously it's a building blocks for tissues. We've talked about this. This is really important, not just for muscular recovery, but for all organs, okay? All tissues, of the body, okay? Organs are just groups of tissue, of one or more tissues. So all tissues in the human body are made up of protein. It doesn't matter whether it's bone, skin, whatever, okay? With the exception of body fat. Number 2. So, sorry, coming back to number 1 here, you need that protein, especially the essential amino acids, which you can only get through diet. You need those for proper health and recovery and life cycle of your organs. Number 2, thermic effect. It has a high thermic effect, right? The highest thermic effect, about 30%. So it takes about roughly 30% of the energy within a protein for it to be digested, right? If you have 100 calories of protein, on average, it takes about 30 calories to digest that 100 calories. It's got a very high cost. Number 3. Okay, we kind of touched upon this. It is necessary for muscle recovery and muscle maintenance, okay? This will, if you get enough protein, if you don't get enough protein, your recovery is going to be slower, 100%. Okay, so now that's making sure you're getting enough protein and calories, right? Because or else if you just say you ate a high protein diet, but your calories are low, like let's say you had 200 grams of protein per day, but you ate nothing else, okay? You're gonna chew through protein for energy. It's not gonna be able to do its job as a building block. Number 4, and I'll stop here for today, satiety, okay? Protein is going to be one of the most satiating forms of food that you can eat, okay? Any type of protein. Obviously, a meat's gonna be a little more satiating than, say, a protein shake. But all in all, protein is going to provide you with the highest satiety, that with maybe along with fiber. Okay, message of the day. And I'll get to more reasons why dietary protein is important, especially for not just your health, but for fat loss, for maintaining body composition. Message of the day. All right, here are my my 5 P's for success. Okay, especially success in this challenge. Practice. Okay, you got to practice all of these things that I've talked about, right? These 4 pillars. I say 3, but 4. There's kind of like 4 pillars, or there's 3 parts, but we can break one of them down into 2, right? We've got the cardio and we've got our weights. Okay, resistance-based training. We've got our accountability, and of course we've got our food, right? So we want to practice that. And of course, we want to promote ourselves. Okay, we want positive talk, right? So self-promote. Okay, we want to be patient. This is all a process here. Not one of my P's, but this is a process, and we need to look at it as a little bit every day. So you need to be patient. You've got to keep persevering. Obviously, as I said, it's a little bit every day. So in order to see that result, we've got to persevere, right? Every day, persevering. And finally, and I've already mentioned it, positivity, staying positive about yourself, staying positive about the process. Those are my 5 P's for success. Practice the pillars of this challenge. Promote yourself in a positive way. Okay, stay positive in general about life, positivity. Okay, patience, be patient with the program, and finally, perseverance. We want to keep persevering through this challenge, right? Positive energy, positive vibes, believe in yourself, and for the love of God, give some gratitude, and I will talk to you tomorrow.